everybody, it's Angel from Halo Inspirations. We give you inspirations to help you spread beauty and joy through your quilting journey. Today is day 12 of the 12 days of quilting. So this is our last motif. This is it. This is the big shebang, right? So what are we doing today? Well, today we are doing, it's called Flurry of Feathers. So that's what we're going today. And I do have, well, let's talk about the things you'll need real quick. So if you were doing this stencil, you would need your sewing machine, a practice sandwich, of course. You will need your free motion foot loaded and ready to go. Now, all those things you can't find in our shop, right? Now, you can find fabric and batting to make your sandwiches. However, I don't carry sewing machines or feet. But what you can find, what I use to make a more pleasant experience in my quilting, I do have machingers. These quilting gloves are awesome. You can find those in the shop. I also use Smets. Boy, I am tongue-tied today. Smets quilting needles. That's actually the type of needle. They're Chrome Pro, although Smets is going all chrome on all their needles. I just don't know how many are still out there that aren't. So don't let it alarm you if you start to see chrome on everything, because they are switching. But this is a 90-14. That's what I'm using. I am going to buy some 80-12s to carry in the shop also, because I do know that some people prefer quilting with those. So I use those for everything. I use it for piecing. I use it for quilting. They're always loaded. This is my go-to. So those are in the shop. Now, you may also enjoy the Sew Slip mat, which it's just this white mat. It's a Teflon and very easy to care for, but it just makes this surface nice and smooth and slippery, so I can push that fabric a lot easier. Then, of course, you'll need the Flurry of Feathers. It's approximately 6 3/4 width, and it is 14 3/4 length. So it's a good size stencil. I mean, this is a big feather, okay? But you'll need that along with a pounce pad and the chalk to go with it, and your thread. Aurifil thread is my go-to. I have 50 weight. I am using white. It sticks out like a sore thumb, so do all the funness that goes with that sometimes when you're learning a new motif or when you're doing your quilting. I typically match my thread. However, I have learned some things doing this stencil, and I wanted to share some tips for that. And it's funny because the first tip I do have to show is in the video. You hear it, my fabric got stuck, and I used 505 spray to fuse my sandwiches together. So I thought I had spray on the batting that was still there. No. So I'm going to throw a picture up with a circle. And if you'll notice, there's a little area with some, well, you can't even see this. So in the picture, it has a couple of areas where the stitches were like all kind of goofed up. That's where it was sticking. So I thought it was the fusible, but if you look even closer, there's a little blue in the batting and off of the green fabric. That was the painter's tape that I used to hold down the backing while I stitched this beautiful motif. There she is. Yes. So my first tip is make sure that all the painter's tape is gone before, because I thought maybe I could just take it out. No, I'm going to have to pick at it because I've actually stitched the tape in there. So, yes. First tip. So I'm going to go ahead and pull you in, and we're going to go ahead and get this 12th day started with our Flurry of Feathers. So, and I'll see you all in just a bit. Okay, I went back and forth in the idea of whether or not I would show you how to apply this because I've done it in the other two, but I went ahead and did it again because I don't like piecemealing videos when I watch videos. So this is an easy thing to take a minute to do. And what I'm doing on this one, I'm actually going to do something a little different. This is only the second time I've actually used this stencil. And I started with it upside down. These words are upside down. That's how you can always tell. But remember I told you, you can flip them and they can go either way. So this is upside down. This is how I learned to use this. So I'm going to keep going with that. And I'm stretching these crosshairs out to the end because when I'm done stitching this, I'm going to pause and I'm going to show you how I pounce out the rest of this motif to add on like it was on a quilt. I'll do that near the end. But again, the only time it's called a pounce pad, okay? But the only time you pounce it is to fill it, okay? You very then simply swipe to get the stencil on. Okay? We're just swiping it on. We do not pounce it on. And you can see where the chalk has gone. I know it's hard in video, but you can see very well where you have chalk and where you don't. Now I'm not going to worry about these crosshairs, but I am going to worry about those because I'm going to add on to it at the end. Just for demonstration purposes. I don't have a full quilt, so we won't be stitching an entire quilt with it. And to be honest, this is a very large feather. Very large. It's not small. You don't have to do this all the way across an entire quilt by any stretch. You can use these in any places that you feel necessary. Now I picked it up, and what I noticed was I'm a little light on that side. So I'm going to go ahead and give it just a little more. I hope I didn't add too much. Pick it up again. Man, it must be the angle of which I'm pouncing or swiping. They should call it the swiper. All right, let's see what this looks like. That's much better. Now, the rest of it's pretty dark. And bada boom, bada bing. We are ready to quilt. So I'm going to take you into the sewing machine and go ahead and get this stitched. See you guys in just a sec. Okay, I hope this angle works good for you guys. I went ahead and got my gloves on. I've loaded my free motion foot. I've gone ahead and pulled up my bobbin thread just to save a little time. And I'm ready to go. Now, I want to tell you, I'm starting at the edge. This is kind of weird. But I wanted to tell you that the best thing to do with this motif, with this particular stencil, is to look ahead of where you're going to be stitching. Don't look at your needle. Look ahead, okay? Now, getting started might be a little goofy for me here, but now, another thing I want to add. This is a very large feather. So when we talked about doing loops, that's going to help you make these turns, okay? But again, you want to look ahead. And the other thing this stencil is going to help you practice is tracing. That actually does take a little bit of practice. And I've come off the line, but you know what? It is a-okay. Now I was watching my needle and not watching ahead, so I'll show you what happens when you do that. Well, you can't really see it, so we're going to keep going for a minute. Now remember, you want to find good places to stop. Notice I'm way off the line. Remember, it is not going to matter at the end of the day, okay? So I came to a point, and to tell you the truth, I don't even know where I'm going. Okay, so I lift my presser foot to see exactly where I'm heading. And I thought I did, but you know, it's always good. So I was at a point, so that was a good place to stop. And I'm looking for the next place to stop. And I have located it. So we're gonna keep on going. And remember, watch where you're going and not your needle. When you stop, then is a good time to take a peek to see how your stitches look and adjust as needed, okay? But watching where you're going is the key to this stencil. Do not check out as much as you want to. You don't want to check out where your needle is and watch the needle. It'll be much more beneficial if you watch where you're going. I'm trying to figure out. I'll show you in a little bit. I'll make sure to do it because you'll see what happens when you watch where you are instead of where you're going. Now, I stopped here because I'm about to take off around this corner, and I'm going to hope that my hand spread is good enough for me to stop over here, okay? Just simply watch ahead. Check your stitches. See how you like your stitch length. I stopped again. And I'm about to go around the next one. I'm watching where I'm needing to go. It's part of, like, you know, whenever we talk about quilting, you always want to know where you're going because you'll get there. This is even more important because you're going to watch the line ahead of you and not where your needle is. That, I'm telling you guys, that is the trick. And I'll make sure I don't watch here in a little bit. Now I have to stop because my hands just weren't going where they needed. Not the best place, but it is what it is. So I'm going to do another one. I notice I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going around that bend and I'm going to try and, it won't happen. Obviously my hands aren't big enough. So I'll stop before, but that would be ideal. Now I think I was not going fast enough for my normal stitch length. All right. Yeah, they're a little small over there. So that's my point is, and you'll get better at this. I already can see a difference. All right. And again, it would be ideal if I can stop over here. So I'm going to go around this bend. Again, the key is to look where you are going and not where you are. All right, we'll do it again. Now I'm gonna eventually, oh, that one's a long, whew, that one's gonna be long. All right, here we go. This long stretch. Obviously, my hands are not that big. So when I stop, I'm going to attempt to not move the fabric and what'll happen a lot of times with my machine, I don't know how yours works, but a lot of times when I stop, my stitches may have just a little bit of a glitch, right? So I might get some really tiny stitches or a really big one when I get started, because I tend to start my hands before my machine because I'm anticipating that needle. It takes, again, you know, I've got a follower who hates when I say take practice, but it does take practice. So I'm going to go ahead and keep going. And it's just, you know, I'm going to have to make that stop. Again, though, you want to be sure that you are looking ahead. and not at the needle. And what happens, now there I started to watch the needle. What happens if you watch the needle, you'll get a lot of movement in your stitching and it won't be as fluid. I'm going to try it over here to watch the needle and hopefully, oh, something was sticking. Hopefully it will demonstrate what I'm talking about. It's so hard for me to watch. That wasn't too bad, but it could have been better, and it would be better. My stitches are starting to get smaller instead of I like them a little bigger than that. It's all about preference, really. And that's part of my problem when I watch the needle is my stitches tend to get smaller instead of really just guiding that fabric. And I get a little bit of a jiggy. I think I stopped here. I'd have to rewatch the video to see, but I don't have it very fluid, and I know I stopped in this bend. So if you can make it all the way through, it's ideal to find places nice to stop. But we're going to keep going. All right. I tried to watch the needle, and you can see how, I don't know if you can or not, but it's just a little bit jiggy-jaggy right here because I'm watching that needle and not the pattern in front. It does truly help. I can't say it enough. That is the biggest tip, is to watch where you're going and not the needle. Much better through here, and that's because I was watching where I was going. Here I'm trying to not do that. I'm going to keep going normal now. Oh, this one's a long one. I'm going to have to stop because I'm getting way past, and I would have loved to be able to get to this point, but I didn't make it. Now I want to also mention that I have a dark blue fabric and I have a white thread. Any inconsistencies, if I match the thread closer to the fabric, all those inconsistencies or little tiny jiggy jaggies that I might have had when I stopped too early or whatnot, they're going to go away. They're going to melt into your quilt, and you won't see them, and you don't point them out. I'm pointing them out for you because I'm trying to help give some tips and some guidance on making this better. But don't point that stuff out, guys. Ain't nobody gonna know, especially if you match that thread. It's kind of like if we talk about binding, we always try to match to the binding. Well, at least I do. There are other people that tend to match to the backing. If I match to the backing, my stitches will show more. So for me, it works better if I match my thread to the binding, and then I hide more stitches that way. All right. Now, if you notice, I'm getting a little bit of chalk buildup, just a little right now. I don't know if you can see that. But every now and again, when I'm really doing stenciling, I didn't do this in the last 2 videos of stenciling, but I talked about it. But I tend to go ahead and do a little brushwork and clean some lint up if I see any. Definitely the chalk, because I've never had it happen. Now, knock on wood, now it probably will. But it, you know, it's buildup. And what happens when you get buildup is you can build enough onto your thread that it'll snap it. And there's nothing worse than breaking threads in the middle of quilting. That would be a really good idea to do some, whoop, I got way off, to do some, a video on how to fix that when it happens. Now see, I'm watching that needle again. I think these long stretches is hard for me not to. Whoop, something's sticking. There's some adhesive on the top of this piece, so it either sticks to me or it sticks to something else. I'm gonna have a little pucker, so I'm gonna try and quilt that out. Whoop, it's not moving. Yep. You're gonna see that one. But again, if I was matching threads, you wouldn't. Okay. Now notice here, this one's a lot of fun. This is a good time to stop. My crosshairs are visible. Okay, so I'm gonna stop the video here. I'm gonna pull this camera out. Oh, whoops. My hands aren't, they get really close. I don't realize how close they are. So I'm gonna pull out the camera. I'm gonna change the angle, and I'm gonna show you how I would continue this motif if in fact it was on a quilt and I wanted to keep going, okay? So I'm gonna be right back in just a second. I am at the place where it's good to stop, so it gives me enough room to pounce this out. I haven't finished the other part of that first stencil, but if I finished it, my needle would be way up here and I couldn't get this lined up correctly. So whenever you're adding on to a stencil and using the same stencil, you want to stop early before you finish it, but near the end, that it gives you enough room to stencil it out. Now you could in fact go to the end and cut threads and move this out of an area that will definitely be beneficial for you if it's a space thing and you need a bigger table. But if you have a big enough table that your machine sits on, just make sure that you give yourself enough space. Now what I'm doing, it doesn't have to be perfect, because remember the lines do go away, but I want to try and line up these crosshairs, and when you do that, it should also line up the end and the start for you, okay? So I'm just taking a quick peek, and like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. I typically do not have a camera in the way, but every now and again, I do get it perfect. Now, I'm not going to pounce this whole thing out because I don't have an entire quilt over here. I have just a little practice sandwich. But I want to show you as best as I can here. Line this up. Swipe, don't pounce. And when you pick it up, boom. So you'll see I actually did line up these crosshairs right on point. My end and my beginning match, and I can go right into the next stencil and keep on going. And you would just keep on doing that. Whatever stencil you're using, it doesn't matter. This was just a demonstration on how to keep adding on. You don't even have to do it exactly the same. So if you need to make bends, you can manipulate your stencil to help you do that. But I wanted to show you what these crosshairs do and how to add them on. So I'm going to finish this up and I'll be back at you in just a bit. I don't know about y'all, but that was fun. And y'all heard, it's only the second time I've used this stencil. Even between the, you know, when I've done it before and now, it's much, much better. It's a lot of fun. And now I learned to free motion my feathers instead of a stencil. That, you know, I learned to free motion before I even realized there were stencils. Except for, you know, I didn't do a whole bunch of free motioning at the beginning, and I ended up using the stars all over that I shared with you at the beginning of this series. I ended up utilizing that to teach myself how to meander really well. And then, of course, I ended up ripping the Band-Aid. And the only time I really use it is for those stars, because we talked about that earlier. I don't do open face stars. So if you want to learn how to do feathers, this is a great motif. And the size of it, it is really big, so you'll cover a whole bunch. It goes really quickly. But just make sure you take the painter's tape off, right? But if you have any questions, concerns, comments, suggestions, drop them down below in the comments, and I'll be sure to get back to you. Love hearing from you guys. I will be on Facebook Live today, 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, my time here in Virginia. So I'll be there for a live Q&A, live quilting and answers. Would love to see you there also. Now, I will tell you, this was the last day, day 12. I hope you found inspiration, and I hope it gave you something to look forward to. And if you're new to quilting your own quilts, I hope this gave you an inspiration to go ahead and give it a try. Or maybe a new method. Maybe you've never done rulers. Maybe you've never used stencils. Just something I hope that you found in, or even some of those walking foot motifs. Whatever it is, I hope you found some inspiration. That is our entire goal, is to provide that for you. So, what next? See, normally I'd be telling you what we'd be doing the next day, right? Well, I will tell you, we will go back to our regular scheduled programming come today's the 1st of August, the 11th of August. I'm sorry, I had to think about it to make sure I gave the right date. That falls on a Wednesday, so not this Wednesday, but the following one. That way I can get caught up, because I am so behind on all kinds of stuff. And today I'm starting on making sure I add some of those lovely products that we've been getting in. I've talked about that on the lives. I got some new products I'm putting on in the shop. For those of you who have a discount code for this event, as of right now, today is the last day to use it. It closes at 11:59 Eastern Daylight Time, my time here in Virginia. But you can use those discount codes on any of the products that you saw that you are intrigued by and want to utilize, or you can use them on anything. We didn't make it restricted. So if you have a discount code, today's the day. But yeah. That is the 12 days of quilting. That is a wrap. I really do hope y'all enjoyed this as much as I did. And we'll do this again, and we'll do more. But see you guys at 3 p.m. today, or the 11th of August. We'll start our regular schedule every Wednesday, once a week. This was just a special event. And, or, you know, I'll see you all soon. So, until next time, may you all continue to be inspired, productive, ever so joyful. Never stop believing. Never stop making your dreams in quilting come true. Thank you so much for stopping by. Thank you so much for celebrating the 12 days of quilting with us during these last 12 days. Thank you for all your support. May your days be filled with full bobbins, happy quilting, and know that we believe in you. See you all soon. Happy Sunday.